country, I think politics is broken. Our task and our mission is to change politics for good. The Brexit Party has been formed now, very simple. The government and Farage do not wish to do Brexit. We are, however, that the whole of our politics in the UK, the two-party system doesn't work.
If they thought we were going to give up, they've got another thing coming. This country needs the Brexit Party, and the Brexit Party needs you. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage, Nigel Farage.
Surprised. I hadn't expected to see anybody here this evening because I have been studying what Scottish politicians say, studying what the mainstream media say, studying what the BBC say, including that distinguished Scot, Andrew Marr. And I've been led to believe, no, I really had been led to believe there wasn't a single Brexiteer in Scotland, so I'm amazed to see you. Because that is how it's portrayed. Now in Westminster, when we talk about the UK as a whole, we're constantly told the 48% must be listened to. The views of the 48% must be taken into account. But when it comes to Scotland, it would seem that the views of 1 million people, the views of nearly 40%, are to be treated with complete and utter contempt, and the Brexit Party is here to put an end to that. Launched this party 5 weeks ago today in a factory in Coventry. And I have to say, what we managed to achieve in those 5 weeks has even exceeded my most optimistic expectation. And here in Scotland, I think the political class are stunned and terrified by those YouGov opinion polls that you might have seen this morning. Because what they show is that our capable team, give them a hand please, what the polls show is that our capable team are now in second position ahead of all the others apart from the SNP, and we've done it in 5 weeks. We've got them on the road. We've got them genuinely scared. And the Labour and Tory votes appear to be almost disappearing, as they should. Because look, in that referendum, we had all the big parties telling us to vote Remain. All the big business figures telling us to vote Remain. All the big trade union leaders telling us to Remain. Much of the media telling us to Remain. The official government leaflet that came through every door. Do you remember that from Cameron? But do you remember David Cameron? 9.4 million quid of our money spent putting that propaganda leaflet through our door when it was supposed to be a neutral thing. How I enjoyed walking up Downing Street and posting it back through his letterbox. But there was one thing in that leaflet that I thought was rather important, because it said, whatever you decide, it will be implemented. And we then had, the next year, a general election, where across the UK, nearly 85% of people voted for Labour and Conservative parties, both of whom promised in their manifesto that they would honour the result of the referendum. And then we had 500 MPs voting for Article 50, which put into British law that we would leave the European Union on March. Thank you. Someone's awake, thank God for that. That we would leave the EU on March the 29th with or without. Thank you. Oh, they're with it now, Mr. Chairman. And when you think about all those promises, when you think about all those reassurances, we didn't leave on March the 29th. We didn't leave, as Mrs. May promised us, on the 12th of April. We haven't left by the 30th of June, and now we're told it'll be fine because we're going to leave on the 31st of October. Halloween. Trick or treating. The truth of it is, if we continue to rely on those parties and this government in Westminster, we will never, ever get a meaningful Brexit. We will never be fully free of EU laws. We will never get back the 200 miles off the coast here in Scotland that should be our exclusive economic fishing zone. We will never get those things if we continue to trust this political class. It is not too strong to say that we have been openly and willfully betrayed by our political class. Having spent 25 years of my life campaigning, standing in election after election, wondering at times whether I might go down in history as the patron saint of lost causes. But I kept on going. I kept on going. And I did it because so strong was my belief that it is the democratic nation state that is the right building block within which I wanted to live. I did it because I believe in the people of our great country. I did it unashamedly because I'm patriotic and think we are a great nation. It's just that we're very badly led. I see Brexit as a fantastic opportunity, a rebirth of the democratic process in our country, an opportunity to reform and modernise, to have a political revolution so that Parliament starts to reflect the will of the people, an opportunity to reach out and start to forge new and better relationships with other parts of the world. We're obsessed with Europe. We're obsessed with Europe. And Europe is not helping us in a 21st century world. Europe is hindering us in the 21st century world. It seems to me that with Brexit, we can reach out and forge new alliances and friendships with people out there in the world that in many ways we're very close to, and I think a better, closer relationship with the 2.4 billion people that live in the Commonwealth would be a very good thing to do. There was no way. I thought, I'm not going to stand aside. I'm not going to be rolled over. I'm not going to see Brexit portrayed without fighting back. That is why I founded the Brexit Party. That is why these candidates are here to help me. I want to know, are you going to help us fight? Good. And do you agree with me that our politics is full of deception? Because here in Scotland, we have the extraordinary situation where Nicola Sturgeon talks about independence. She says that separating from the United Kingdom but staying part of the European Union means that Scotland will be independent. And it is, I think, the most dishonest political discourse I've ever seen anywhere in the world. You cannot be independent if you're governed from the European Court of Justice. You cannot be independent if you're in the EU's customs union and single market. You cannot be independent if you're governed by Monsieur Barnier and Mr. Juncker. You can't be independent. And I think this myth needs to be exposed. There are maybe as many as 30% of SNP voters that do not want to be part of the European Union. And I would say to those voters, even though I'm very much a unionist, but I would say to those voters, unless we get Brexit, you cannot really have an intelligent debate about Scotland's future. And actually, what you ought to do, folks, in this election, if you're genuinely a nationalist, is desert the SNP, lend your vote to the Brexit Party, let's get out of the European Union, and then have an honest debate about the future. My great privilege to be back here in Edinburgh today. I notice that the howling mob outside is considerably smaller than it was when I was last here a few years ago. Protest they come out, I'm pretty disappointed. But you know, can you imagine any of us turning up to a meeting of Euro-federalists or the SNP? Can you imagine any of us screaming abuse at their delegates as they arrive? Can you imagine us trying to stop democratic debate taking place? You know, the other night in Merthyr Tydfil, we had Plaid Cymru lying in the road, trying to stop our delegates attending that meeting. And if you think about it, it gets to the very heart of what is really happening in the United Kingdom today. There is a ruling class of politicians and political parties who genuinely believe that they know better what's good for us than we do in our own judgments. when they say that we didn't know what we voted for in the referendum. What they mean is we're frankly too stupid, too ignorant to have been given that choice in the first place. Can you imagine, 3 years on, with the referendum not delivered? Can you imagine if in an African country an election had simply been overturned? There would be uproar. Many of those of the liberal elite would now be having a fit of the vapours. They'd be demanding the United Nations be sent in. And yet, it is the arrogance of those elites that now has stopped Brexit from happening. And the reason we do not behave like they do, the reason we would never behave like they do, the reason why I'd never ever have anybody in the Brexit party speaking or behaving in that manner is because we believe that those generations that went before us made a massive sacrifice for us to live free